Bonjour. And that's the end of my French. Sorry about that. I came yesterday from Brazil just to do this presentation, but more than that, for me, it's an amazing opportunity for sharing ideas with people that are trying to do things very similar what I've been working on in the last 5 years. That was how to apply Lean in the broad sense to the company I found 17 years ago, that's Ci&T. So I'll start saying, just highlighting what is Ci&T. Ci&T is a company focused on high-end custom application development. We are approaching 2,000 software engineers now. We were founded in Brazil 17 years ago. Now we have units in US, really 4 offices in the United States, Brazil, Argentina, Japan, and China. I will share some of the challenges of dealing not only with the Lean culture, but in the difference of how each country or the culture of China, for example, deals with some concepts that were raised in the Western world. Then we got to Lean and said, well, in the second experiment, how about adding some practices that will not change the Scrum stuff that's almost an ideology, but we'll add some real software engineer practice, scope budget management, PMI stuff. We think that we have a better chance of succeed. And then we start getting better results. And these customers start to promote us. And by the end of 2007, we have probably 10 teams working in just 5 different customers using this strange, agile approach. And then I mentioned we go to the books and we start getting some consultant, and then, well, I think if this has a chance to work, if we add more scientific stuff and best practice that is not related to the, if you are using waterfall or agile, especially architecture practices and budget management practice. So we created the first version we call Ci&T Production System, but it was just a way to say that we were reading the Toyota books because it was not there yet for sure. And we create a completely different environment. We start using unknown situation walls. So we changed the way we really, the new buildings Ci&T were constructed were more like islands, and we eliminate the cubicles, the typical cubicles that you see in software factory. And then we said, oh, agile is just a small part of everything is needed to make software in the corporate environment. And we asked for this ideology, customers saying, we need at least 4 metrics. One is productivity, another is quality, customer satisfaction, and team satisfaction. We are not using the 300 metrics we have in our CMMI process, but we want to compare, because for some time we are running as a bipolar company with part of our production in one way, the traditional waterfall, really the unified process. We were really proud of being pioneer on that stuff. And then a more happy environment, clearly more enthusiastic people, and becomes representative in our business, working in different, that we call the Lean process or the Ci&T Production System. It happens that at 2009, we have real metrics to compare, and that was a whoa. come on, what's happened that? We don't have maturity. We don't know exactly why this is working, but the results are aggressively better than our, comparing Ci&T with Ci&T, not going to the delusion of marketing benchmarks. That's very hard if someone can do that or that. But when you compare in the same domain, it's easy to see that we were improving productivity and quality, but team satisfaction, it's in another level. And customer satisfaction was the first time in 17 years, in that time less than that, 15, 14 years, that we have what we call peak experience. Customers saying that we are changing their lives with the new approach. So, and a business customer, business users saying that it's really the way I would love to work with IT. So we said, well, there is something here, and we need to really think about if we cannot build a much more powerful company around these very immature concepts, but since the beginning showing the potential. And then the obvious question is, can we apply the same PDCA discipline to our management system? How we could do that? And that question took us to what I'm here to share with you, our experience applying really 2 years, for 2 years, the hoshin kanri tool for our strategic planning. And that was the time, in 2000, that was the time when I and all the Ci&T execs, we did all the course you can manage, A3 management. We read and hoshin training courses. We did we went to a lot of seminars like this one, and we read dozens of books. But we select 2 books that was, I would say, very important in the way we decide to implement that on Ci&T. It's the John Shook, of course you know these books, right? The John Shook, Managing to Learn, and specifically the hoshin book, Getting the Right Things Done by Dennis Pascal. That was I think the fundamental sources for our first experiments on that. But I'm saying experience, but I was talking about, as the CEO, changed the 10 years of balanced scorecard planning. We were very proud of that process too. But we decided that we have embraced. How we decide that? It's a story. I was in a training with John Shook. John Shook was in Brazil, and for the Lean Summit Brazil 2010, I was in the 3rd course training with him, and he asked, well, what are you doing here again? I said, I don't know, I need to learn. and really, he said, well, I'm really repeating the same thing I did yesterday with more details and more time for interaction. But if you want, you cannot take part in the groups again, and you stay with me, and we can discuss more about your specific. Wow, great! One day of John Shook for me, and at the end of that day, I asked John Shook if, well, we did that. Lean as production system is amazing. We did dozens of trainings, but we are insecure about change our whole management system. And he said something, should we do small experiments, how we could get confident and go further with that idea. He said something that I never expected at that time. That's something like, César, you should start right now because it's going to take a lot of time, at least 5 years, to have something really mature at your company. I said, wow, I think I was needing this push. And then I get at Ci&T, said, guys, we are going to really change the way we do things. And then It's the story I'm here to share. It's unfinished journey, right? We have a 5 years plan. I will show some details about that. And we did 2 cycles. We are in the 3rd cycle, annual PDCA of applying hoshin. And from, again, my guru, John Shook, it was amazing. I think you know, as part of the Lean community, this article, How to Change a Culture, Lessons Learned from NUMMI, the joint venture between Toyota and General Motors. And it was very interesting, the idea that if you want to change, of course, when you start learning or reading the Toyota books, the main challenge is culture, right? Well, a lot of interest stuff here, but you need a specific culture to make everything work. And then, traditionally, we think like the old model. Well, we change the culture, that will change the values of the company and the attitudes, and then it changes behavior. And that simple idea that start changing the behavior, and that will generate a cascade of changing attitudes, and then the culture will be the appropriate culture for Lean, was a really insightful thing for us. And it really drove everything we did to put a new management system in place and start learning from this new system with a lot of flaws, a lot of defects. But it was a baseline for us to let's change everything the managers are doing every day to something we believe is more appropriate for the new system. And then let's fix, let's do a PDCA, and let's improve on top of that. So that was really insightful. So when you talk about hoshin, I think maybe the first part is you need to define your true north explicitly, and you need to accommodate different views from the stockholders, from the employees, from the top management, and even from the society. So it's an interesting debate to according something that makes sense for everyone. And we did that as the first step, was about 2 weeks of discussions. And then, of course, it started with the stockholders, right, the shareholders, and they defined some key objectives for industry relevance that we measure by market cap. And then from the people that worked at Ci&T, we got very good insightful of what would be the key metrics for people. And then with the customers, we get what they expect from us in the long term. And of course, there is PDCAs, even the medium to long term, is a cycle. And we want to also create some foundation for what we are going to do after 2015. And we call that pillar innovation. So we build the true north around 4 key metrics or pillars: industry relevance, that's market cap, our people, value to customer, and innovation. Our people could be value to our people. So that was I would say, exciting part of having this definition and then use that to communicate purpose in the whole company. And then, but when we try to roll out that message, we realized that our mission, our statement, was not updated with the new ambitions. So we have another sessions with executives and managers to redefine our mission that could couple with the new ambitions that our true north was indicating. And another part is we need a mission that is linked to our management culture, to the new management culture we are defined. And so we raised a very interesting sentence, I think, changing I would show you the older, the former mission, but really we changed it, putting learning at the center of our purpose as a company. And of course, we continue aiming to execute as no one has done before, but we start saying that we are a learning organization. We want to develop the people. There's a short for this, that is, we develop people before software. We develop people before we develop software. That summarizes the idea of our mission and our management culture. And we also make explicit something that was implicit before that. That's the 5 beliefs, the main beliefs of Ci&T, we would call the values. That's our purpose, to make a difference, our long-term philosophy. Of course, our belief, our respect for people, our and part of this is related to the way we want to make a difference. That's autonomy, or we call power to the edge. It means how we really provide mastery environment for the people that work at the company. And finally, our belief on process, on frontline execution, on a baseline of process that help us to do the continuous improvement. So from that, we go to 2 months sessions with about 30 people. That's directors and executive managers. And then we together with them, having the True North 2015 defined, we cascaded, of course, what we need to do in this first cycle, that was 2011. And from that team, we also did the same discussion about what are the main gaps, and that defined the modern A3s. I will show just one example of that. And of course, there's a cascading for the whole company, not only the business units, but also the support areas for that. And look, I will show, this part sounds very similar to management by objectives, balanced scorecard, you cascade objectives. But in the essence of hoshin, it's completely different. The way you define, you negotiate, you get consensus about the goals and the gaps around the company is completely different. And I will try to illustrate that in 4 different aspects. And just trying to materialize what is an A3, I get one from that time, and got one aspect of this. We were starting our operation in Japan and China, and we have, this is the team, the executives that were in charge of this A3. And one current condition that we need to address was, well, we were facing tremendous success with our mobile studio in the United States. And we don't see the same thing happen in Japan. And the initial hypothesis was, well, I think the marketing in the United States is more advanced. Mobile is already mainstream. That's why we have such demand for our mobile studio. And then we did the analysis, the Gamba stuff, and we went to the sales force in Japan and said, well, why we don't have, because the initial hypothesis was based on the data from the sales force. Oh, the number of opportunities that comes from relate to mobile is very small in Japan compared to US. Okay, but why that? The idea, the discipline of the whys. And the whys took us to the sales force in Japan, and they said, well, we tried some engagements here. During the pre-sale, we have to access UX specialists, Ci&T user experience specialists in New York. And that makes the whole process very complicated for us. So we think we are not ready to sell real high-end mobile solutions in Japan. And that confronts with the original executive view that, well, Japan is a smartphone market yet. They are engaging feature phone, right? They are engaged smartphone, Android, iOS stuff just now. So they are in an early phase. And that was not true. The sales force was blocking this subject during the sales process because they don't feel comfortable with our capabilities, local capabilities in Japan and China. And that took us to, well, this was the analysis. It was strange that only 20% of the growth in Asia was related to mobile. And then the countermeasure was very straightforward. Well, we need to create that competence there in Japan and China. So, and then we built another A3 to detail how we would, I think the deadline was February, how we would have this competence created, established locally in Japan and China. And we did that. And then, of course, we defined that, well, we are going to have specific PDCA check and act meetings for seeing if we are following this idea. And check if, with the sales team, if we are really change the way we deal with mobile in Asia. And I just going to the last, summarizing that, now is, I think 80% of what we do in Asia is mobile, now in 2012. And so that was a critical strategic decision that came from a traditional hoshin or A3 analysis, why that, go to the game, but talk to the people that are in the front line, and try to not use the first executive view of what's happened in such a situation. Thank you.